Marina Sterling gripped the steering wheel of her silver Mercedes-Benz with trembling hands. The sharp pain piercing her abdomen had started 15 minutes ago, right after she left the meeting with the family lawyers. It was a different kind of pain, terrifying, that made her gasp for breath. She tried to control her breathing, but another pang made her let out a low moan. The neighborhood around her was completely unfamiliar. Marina had never set foot in that industrial area of the East End of London. The narrow streets, iron warehouses, and small mechanical workshops contrasted sharply with the gardens of Mayfair where she grew up. But at that moment, lost and with her car making a strange noise in the engine, she had no choice. The pain returned, stronger this time. Marina pulled her car over at the first garage she saw. The faded sign read, "St. George's Garage, General Repairs." The floor was cracked, oil-stained concrete, and there were 3 old cars parked in various stages of disassembly. It was so different from the luxury dealership, where she usually took her vehicles, that for a moment she thought about driving on, but the pain wouldn't allow it. Marina opened the car door and barely managed to stand. Her legs buckled and she leaned against the hood, breathing with difficulty. The beige linen dress, which had cost £5,000, was sticking to her back with sweat. That's when she saw him for the first time. Ryan Taylor was underneath a Vauxhall Corsa, only his legs visible, wearing blue overalls splattered with grease. Hearing the expensive engine enter the yard, he slid out on a creeper and stood up in a fluid motion. He was a tall man, broad-shouldered, about 35 years old. His brown eyes expressed surprise at seeing the Mercedes, and then concern as he noticed the elegant woman leaning against the car, her face contorted in pain. Marina tried to speak, but another contraction cut her off. She placed her hand on her rounded belly beneath the loose dress. 6 months pregnant, she had managed to hide her bump from everyone until now, but at that moment she could only think of the life she carried within her. Ryan rushed to her and held her by the shoulders as Marina began to collapse. She was lighter than she looked, and he supported her carefully, feeling her body tremble against his. "Don't take me to the hospital," she whispered urgently, gripping his overalls with surprising strength. "Please, it can't be a hospital. My family can't know." Ryan looked at her pale face, her colorless lips, the sweat dripping from her forehead. He didn't know this woman, but he recognized desperation when he saw it. And he also recognized a medical emergency. "Ma'am, you need medical attention," he said firmly but without rudeness. "I'm taking you now." "No, you don't understand," Marina tried to protest, but another wave of pain silenced her. She doubled over, and Ryan held her more firmly. "Carl!" he shouted into the garage. "Bring me my truck keys now." A young lad, an apprentice, came running with a bunch of keys. His eyes widened at the scene. "Call John to stay here. I'm taking her to the hospital," Ryan ordered as he opened the passenger door of his old but well-maintained white Ford Ranger. He gently settled Marina onto the seat, buckling her seatbelt as the woman cried softly. "I'll lose everything," she murmured. "My father will disinherit me. He'll take everything from me." Ryan got into the driver's side and started the ignition. His daughter Isabella was at daycare, and he had to pick her up in 2 hours. But at that moment, the woman beside him needed him more than anything else. "You won't lose anything if we don't get to that hospital soon," he replied, pressing down on the accelerator. During the 15-minute drive to St. Luke's City Hospital, Marina drifted in and out of consciousness. Ryan talked to her the whole time, asking questions to keep her awake. "What's your name? How many months pregnant? When was the last time you ate something?" "Marina," she managed to answer. "Marina Sterling, 6 months. I don't remember eating today." The surname Sterling echoed in Ryan's head like an alarm bell. It couldn't be that Sterling family, the family that owned half of London's shopping centres, with a fortune estimated in billions. But when he glanced at her designer shoes, at the watch that probably cost more than his house, he knew it was exactly that family. At the hospital, Ryan carried Marina in his arms through the emergency entrance, shouting for help. A team of nurses rushed with a stretcher, and she was taken immediately. An on-call doctor, Dr. Christine, began asking quick questions while checking Marina's vital signs. Ryan waited in the waiting room, still in his grease-stained overalls, completely out of place among the plastic chairs and the smell of disinfectant. He looked at his own oil-stained hands and then at the clock on the wall. He needed to pick up Isabella in an hour and a half, but he couldn't leave. Something in Marina's frightened eyes held him there. 40 minutes later, Dr. Christine came out of the emergency room and walked towards him. Ryan jumped to his feet. "She's stable," the doctor said, and Ryan felt his shoulders relax. It was a hypertensive crisis associated with severe stress and dehydration. "The baby is fine, but she needs complete bed rest for the next few weeks. Are you the husband?" Ryan shook his head. "No, I just brought her in. She pulled over at my garage, feeling unwell." The doctor looked at him with an expression Ryan couldn't decipher. "She didn't want to give us any emergency contact. Said she has no one, is that true?" Ryan thought of Marina's reaction when he mentioned the hospital, the desperation in her voice. "I think so," he replied softly. "In that case," Dr. Christine sighed, "she'll be discharged tomorrow, but she can't be alone. She needs someone nearby, regular meals and rest, no stress." Ryan ran a hand through his short hair, leaving a trail of grease on his forehead without realizing it. He thought of Isabella, of his small two-bedroom house in Willow Creek, of the bills he barely managed to pay every month. He thought of the simple life he had built with such effort after his wife Joanna left 3 years ago, leaving him alone with a 2-year-old baby in his arms. But he also thought of Marina's face, that look of someone who had nothing left to lose. "Can I talk to her?" he asked. The doctor nodded and led him to a bed separated by curtains. Marina was lying down, an IV in her arm, her eyes closed. She looked even more fragile under the hospital's fluorescent lights, her dark blonde hair spread on the thin pillow. Hearing footsteps, she opened her eyes. When she saw Ryan, something between relief and shame crossed her face. "You stayed," she said softly. "I stayed." Ryan pulled up a chair and sat beside the bed. "The doctor said you'll be fine, but you need to rest. Is there anyone I can call for you?" Marina closed her eyes again, and 2 tears rolled down her temples. "I have no one. The baby's father ran away when he found out my father would discover it. My friends aren't really friends. They're just people who go to the same parties as me. And my family," she laughed humorlessly, "my family would rather I disappear than stain the Sterling name." Ryan was silent for a moment, listening to the constant beep of the heart monitor. He thought of all the reasons why he should simply leave. He didn't know this woman. She was from a completely different world. He had his own responsibilities, his own complicated life. But when he opened his mouth, the words that came out were different. "You can stay at my place." Marina opened her eyes and stared at him in disbelief. "What?" "It's small," Ryan continued, surprised by his own words. "Only 2 bedrooms. My daughter and I share one. You can use the other. It's not luxury, but it's clean and you'll have food and a safe place to rest." "I can't accept that," Marina whispered, but her voice was laden with hope. "Why would you do that for me? You don't even know me." Ryan shrugged. "My grandmother used to say you never know when you'll need a stranger. Maybe today I'm that stranger for you." Marina looked at this man in dirty overalls, with calloused hands and kind eyes, and saw more nobility than she had seen in her entire life, surrounded by people with important surnames and stratospheric bank accounts. "Thank you," she whispered. And for the first time in months, she felt that maybe she wasn't completely lost. Marina spent the night in the hospital under observation, and Ryan returned the next morning to pick her up. He had left Isabella with the neighbor, Mrs. Teresa, a 60-year-old lady who helped care for the girl when needed. When he arrived at the room, he found Marina already dressed, sitting on the edge of the bed with an expression between apprehension and determination. The ride to Willow Creek was silent. Marina looked out the truck window, watching the urban landscape gradually change. Mirrored buildings gave way to more modest constructions. Wide avenues turned into narrow streets. It was like crossing an invisible border between 2 different countries within the same city. Ryan parked in front of a 3-story building, with peeling paint but a solid structure. He lived on the 2nd floor. As they climbed the concrete stairs, Marina held onto the iron railing, ascending slowly. Her body was still weak, and each step felt like a small mountain. "Sorry, no elevator," Ryan said, carrying the small suitcase Marina had in the trunk of her Mercedes. He had asked Carl to pick up her car and park it at the garage until she decided what to do. "It's all right," Marina replied, breathing with difficulty when they reached the second floor. Ryan opened the apartment door, and the smell of fresh coffee filled the hallway. Inside, Mrs. Teresa was in the small open-plan kitchen, preparing breakfast. Isabella, a 5-year-old girl with braids in her hair and curious eyes, was playing on the living room rug with rag dolls. "Daddy!" the girl shouted and ran to hug her father's legs. Ryan picked her up, kissing her forehead. "Isa, this is Marina. She's going to stay with us for a while," he explained softly. Isabella looked at Marina with the frankness typical of children. "Are you sick? Your face is white like milk." Marina couldn't help but smile. "A little bit sick, yes. That's why I'll need a lot of rest." Mrs. Teresa approached, wiping her hands on her apron. "Welcome, dear. I made coffee and tapioca. You need to eat something." The kindness of this woman who didn't even know her made Marina's eyes sting. She had grown up in a mansion with 15 servants, but had never felt the genuine warmth emanating from that tiny kitchen. Ryan showed her the apartment. The living room had a worn but clean sofa, an old television, and shelves full of children's books and tools. The kitchen was the size of a closet in Marina's bedroom at the Sterling mansion. There were 2 doors. One led to the bedroom Ryan shared with Isabella, with a double bed and a child's bed, both neatly made. The other door revealed a small room that served as a storage area and makeshift office. "I'll tidy this up for you today," Ryan said, looking at the stacked boxes and the small table with papers. "I have a folding bed I can set up. It's not much, but it'll do." "It's perfect," Marina said, and it was true. For the first time in her life, she felt she was in a place where she was welcome for who she was, not for the surname she carried. After breakfast, while Ryan went to the garage, Marina insisted on helping Mrs. Teresa tidy the room. The lady didn't allow her to exert herself, but let her organize some light things. Isabella stayed by Marina's side the whole time, talking non-stop about her daycare, her dolls, and her father. "My dad is the best mechanic in the world," the girl declared proudly. "He fixes everything. Once he even fixed my doll whose arm had fallen off." "He seems very special indeed," Marina agreed, sitting on the makeshift bed that now occupied the small room. The walls had damp stains, but there was a window that let in the sunlight. "My mum left when I was little," Isabella continued with the naturalness of children talking about heavy topics. "Daddy said she went to live somewhere far away. Did you know your mum?" Marina felt a pang in her chest. "Yes, I know her. But we don't talk much." "Why?" Isabella asked, her eyes wide with genuine curiosity. "Because sometimes families are complicated," Marina replied, choosing her words carefully. "Sometimes the people who should love us don't know how to do it right." Isabella thought for a moment, shaking her head. "Here, we know Daddy taught me. He says loving is caring even when it's hard." Those simple words from a 5-year-old child contained more wisdom than Marina had found in all the gala dinners and board meetings she had attended throughout her life. The first few days were a complete immersion in a reality Marina only knew from afar. She learned that the neighborhood supermarket had discount days, that it was necessary to turn off lights to save energy, that clothes could be hand-washed when the building's laundry room was busy. She learned that the noise of neighbors was not intrusion, but a sign of life happening. Ryan came home from the garage every day at 6 in the evening, always dirty with grease, always tired, but always with a smile for Isabella and a kind question about how Marina had spent her day. He cooked simple but tasty dinners: rice, beans, shredded chicken, tomato salad. Marina, accustomed to private chefs and elaborate menus, discovered she had never eaten anything so good. One night, as they washed dishes together after Isabella had gone to sleep, Ryan broke the comfortable silence that had settled between them. "You don't have to tell me if you don't want to," he said, rinsing a plate. "But what happened? How did you end up alone like this?" Marina dried her hands on the dish towel and leaned against the sink. She had avoided that conversation, but knew Ryan deserved to know at least part of the truth. "I fell in love with the wrong person," she began. "Robert was a lawyer. He worked for a partner company of my family's. He was charming, attentive, said all the right things. When I found out I was pregnant, I was terrified, but also happy. I thought we could build something together." "And he?" Ryan asked softly. "He panicked." Marina felt tears burn, but didn't let them fall. "Said my father would destroy him if he found out. that he wasn't ready to be a father, offered me money to resolve the problem, as he put it. When I refused, he simply disappeared. Moved cities, blocked my phone, vanished. Ryan turned off the tap and faced her. "And your family?" Marina laughed humorlessly. "My father is Arthur Sterling. Maybe you've heard of him. Owner of Sterling Holdings, one of the richest men in the country. He built an empire but never learned to build a family. To him, I was always an asset, something to be displayed at dinners and used to make strategic alliances through a convenient marriage." "That's why you didn't want to go to the hospital," Ryan understood. "I knew that if I was admitted, eventually someone would find out who I am, and my father would be notified, and then everything would be over. He would lock me in the mansion, force me to give up the baby, or completely disinherit me." Marina looked at Ryan with gratitude. "You saved me from more than just a medical crisis. You gave me a choice." Ryan dried his hands and placed a hand on her shoulder, a simple gesture of comfort. "No one deserves to live without choices, and this baby," he looked at her belly, "deserves to be born in a place full of love, not obligations." That night, lying in her small bed in the modest room, Marina placed her hand on her belly and felt the baby move. For the first time since she discovered she was pregnant, she didn't feel fear. She felt hope. In the following weeks, Marina began to integrate into neighborhood life. Mrs. Teresa taught her how to make cornmeal cake and homemade bread. The neighbors, initially curious about the elegant woman who had appeared out of nowhere, soon welcomed her when they realized she didn't consider herself superior. Marina helped fold clothes on the communal clothesline, participated in conversations on the stairwell, and played with the other children in the building alongside Isabella. She discovered she had a knack for numbers and began helping Ryan with the garage's accounting on afternoons when she felt well. The papers were disorganized, the accounts mixed up, but Marina saw potential. She reorganized everything, created simple spreadsheets, showed him where he could save money and where it was worth investing. "You're good at this," Ryan said one afternoon, looking admiringly at the organized folders. "Did you study business?" "I studied economics at UCL, Marina replied. "But I never really worked. My father wouldn't allow it. Said a Sterling family woman didn't need to work, just needed to marry well." Ryan shook his head. What a waste. It was exactly what Marina had thought for years, but she had never dared to say it out loud. A month after her arrival, on a warm November afternoon, Marina was helping Isabella draw at the living room table when the doorbell rang. Ryan went to answer and returned with a worried expression. "Marina, someone here wants to talk to you." Marina's stomach tightened. She stood up slowly and went to the door. In the hallway stood Paul, her father's private driver, a 50-year-old man who had worked for the family for decades. "Miss Sterling," he said, his face showing relief and concern, "we've been looking for you for weeks. Your father is very worried." Marina knew that was a lie. Her father didn't get worried. He got irritated when things didn't go as he planned. "How did you find me?" she asked. "Your car, miss. We tracked it by GPS. It's at a garage in the East End. It was only a matter of time until we found out where you were." Marina looked at Ryan, who stood behind her, protective. Then she looked at Isabella, who watched her with worried eyes. Finally, she looked at her own hands, no longer perfectly manicured but strong and capable. "Tell my father I'm fine, and that I've made my choice." "Miss Sterling." Paul lowered his voice. "Mr. Arthur won't accept this. He'll come personally." "Then he'll come," Marina replied, and for the first time in her life, she didn't fear the confrontation that was coming. For 3 days, Marina lived in anticipation of the storm she knew was approaching. Ryan noticed the tension in her shoulders, the way she looked out the window whenever she heard a car park on the street. He didn't press her, just stayed nearby, a silent and comforting presence. On the morning of the 4th day, the storm finally arrived. Marina was helping Isabella get ready for daycare when they heard the sound of a powerful engine parking beneath the building. It wasn't a common sound in that neighborhood. It was the deep, unmistakable roar of a luxury car. Ryan was having coffee and immediately stood up when he saw the expression on Marina's face. She had paled, her hands trembling slightly as she finished combing Isabella's hair. "It's him," she whispered. Stay here with Issa, Ryan said firmly. I'll go down. No. Marina straightened her shoulders. This is my fight. But thank you. They went down together, Isabella staying with Mrs. Teresa, who appeared at the door upon hearing the movement. On the pavement, a black Mercedes-Benz S-Class gleamed under the morning sun, completely out of place among the Fiestas and Corsas parked on the street. Leaning against the hood was Arthur Sterling. At 62, Arthur was an imposing man, tall, with perfectly combed grey hair. He wore a suit that cost more than 3 months' rent for the entire building. His eyes, the same shade as Marina's, were cold and calculating. Beside him was Paul, the driver, and a younger man in a suit whom Marina recognized as Marcus, one of the family's private security guards. Marina descended the last steps and stopped a few feet from her father. Ryan stood a half step behind her, not interfering but making it clear he was there. Arthur looked his daughter up and down. His eyes scanned the simple cotton dress she wore, bought from a local discount store for £20. He noticed the rubber flip-flops, her hair tied in a ponytail without any salon treatment. And finally his expression hardened as he saw her belly, already quite evident under the fabric. So it's true, he said, his voice controlled but laden with disapproval. You're pregnant and decided to hide in this place. I didn't hide, Marina replied, keeping her voice firm. I found a home. Arthur let out a short, humorless laugh. A home? In this slum? Marina, you grew up in a 20,000-square-foot mansion. You had the best schools, the best clothes, the best opportunities, and you throw it all away to live in a miserable apartment with strangers? These people took me in when I had nowhere to go. Marina felt anger rising. They offered me something our family never offered, true affection, without conditions. Arthur took a step forward. Affection doesn't pay bills. Affection doesn't guarantee your child's future. You're being naive and selfish. I came to get you. We'll resolve this situation properly. The baby can be given up for adoption through our lawyers, all discreetly, and you can resume your life. Marina felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. I will not give up my child. Then how will you raise this child? Arthur gestured to the building. Here? A Sterling living in poverty. I will not allow you to destroy our family name. That's when Ryan stepped forward. Excuse me, sir, he said, his voice polite but firm. Marina isn't living in poverty. She has a roof over her head, food, and people who care about her. That's more than many people in this world have. Arthur looked at Ryan as if he were seeing a particularly unpleasant insect. And who are you? The savior. Let me guess. You saw an opportunity when a rich woman appeared at your door. Are you thinking of extorting my family? Ryan was unperturbed. I'm Ryan Taylor, owner of the garage where your daughter's car broke down. When she felt unwell, I took her to the hospital because it was the right thing to do. I offered her a place to stay because she needed it. I didn't ask for anything in return, and I won't. I'm not like the people you know. Arthur assessed Ryan for a long moment. You're a mechanic, a man who works with grease-stained hands, and you think you can give my daughter what she needs? I'm giving her respect, Ryan replied, something that apparently you never offered. The silence that followed was heavy. Neighbors had begun to gather at windows and doors, watching the scene. Mrs. Teresa held Isabella on the second floor, the girl observing everything with wide eyes. Arthur turned his attention back to Marina. Last chance. You come with me now, undergo a proper medical evaluation, and we'll resolve this as a family. Or you stay here and will be completely disinherited. I will cut off any and all access to family resources. You will be left without a penny. Marina looked at her father and saw a man who had never truly seen her as a person. To him, she had always been a piece on his chessboard, an asset to be managed. And at that moment she realized she had two choices: return to a gilded cage or choose freedom, even if it meant poverty. She placed her hand on her belly, feeling the baby move as if encouraging her decision. Then disinherit me, she said, her voice clear and firm, because I choose to stay. I choose to raise my child in a place where he will be loved for who he is, not for the surname he carries. I choose to live among people who know the value of honest work and true kindness. Arthur clenched his jaw. You'll regret this, Marina. When the money runs out, when reality hits, you'll beg to come back. "And I won't accept. I won't beg," Marina replied, "because for the first time in my life, I am free." Arthur looked at her for another moment, his eyes trying to find some sign of hesitation. When he found none, he nodded to Paul and got into the car. Before closing the door, he turned one last time. "From today on, you are no longer a Sterling. I will arrange the disinheritance papers. Do not try to contact me. To me, you have ceased to exist." The car pulled away with a powerful roar, leaving behind a cloud of dust and the stunned silence of the neighbors. Marina stood on the pavement, her legs trembling. Ryan held her by the elbow, giving her support. "Are you sure about what you just did?" he asked softly. Marina looked at him, at his kind and worried eyes, and then looked up to the window where Isabella waved shyly. She thought of the month she had spent there, the laughter during breakfast, the conversations in the small kitchen, the human warmth she had never experienced in the empty halls of the mansion. "I've never been so sure of anything in my life," she replied. That night, after Isabella was asleep, Marina and Ryan sat on the living room sofa. The television was off and the silence was comfortable. Marina had cried after everything was over, letting out years of hurt and disappointment. Ryan simply held her hand, offering no empty words of comfort, just presence. "I have nothing left," Marina said eventually. "No family, no money, no resources. I'll have a baby in 3 months and I have no way to support him." Ryan squeezed her hand. "You have more than you think. You're smart, hardworking, and brave. And you're not alone. We'll figure out a way." "Why are you doing this?" Marina turned to face him. "Why are you helping me like this? You don't owe me anything." Ryan was silent for a moment, choosing his words. "When my wife left," he began, "leaving me alone with Isabella, I thought I wouldn't manage. She was so small, I worked so much, didn't have enough money. But the neighbors helped me. Mrs. Teresa looked after Isa when I needed it. Carl from the bakery gave me bread when I was short on cash. The people here taught me that community means looking out for each other." He looked at Marina. "You need help now. I can help. It's as simple as that. Besides," he smiled slightly, "Isa loves having you here. She won't stop talking about you." Marina felt her heart clench in a different way, a good way. "I love being here too. I love her, and she hesitated. "I love the person you are." Ryan held her gaze and something passed between them. A silent understanding that this was more than just an act of charity. It was the beginning of something deeper. In the following days, the news of Marina Sterling's disinheritance exploded in the media. Gossip newspapers published scandalous headlines about the heiress who chose poverty. Magazines speculated about her mental state. Social media was divided. Some called her crazy, others brave. Marina read none of it. She was too busy learning to live her new life. She woke up early to make coffee, helped Isabella get ready for daycare, organized the house, and continued working on the garage's accounting. Ryan began paying her a small amount for the work, insisting that she was saving him much more money than she cost. With that money, Marina bought her first clothes with her own earnings. They weren't designer. They were from a local discount store, but when she put on the simple floral dress, she felt more beautiful than she had ever felt wearing any haute couture piece. She also started attending the local clinic for prenatal care. The doctor, Dr. Felicity, was attentive and experienced. Marina discovered that the NHS, so criticized by the circles she grew up in, offered human and competent care. The other pregnant women in the waiting room shared tips, stories, and encouragement. One afternoon, returning from the clinic, Marina stopped at a small neighborhood park. She sat on a bench and watched children playing, mothers chatting, elderly people playing dominoes. It was a simple, everyday scene, but in it there was a richness that no money could buy. She placed her hand on her belly where the baby kicked with increasing strength. "You'll grow up here," she whispered. "You'll play in this park. You'll go to the neighborhood school. You'll have real friends. You'll learn that a person's worth isn't in what they have, but in who they are." And for the first time since she discovered she was pregnant, Marina felt no fear of the future. She felt hope. Summer arrived with full force in Willow Creek, bringing intense heat and sudden afternoon thunderstorms. Marina was entering her 8th month of pregnancy, and her body showed the signs. Her feet swelled, her back ached, and climbing the stairs to the 2nd floor became an expedition that required pauses. But she never complained. Ryan had transformed the small room into a cozy space for her and the baby. With the help of Mr. Martin, the neighborhood carpenter, he built a simple pine wood crib. Mrs. Teresa organized a community baby shower, where neighbors brought used but well-cared-for clothes, cloth diapers, and handmade blankets. Marina cried throughout the celebration, touched by the generosity of those people who had so little but gave so much. The garage prospered under the new organization Marina had implemented. She created a scheduling system that optimized Ryan's time, negotiated better prices with parts suppliers, and even secured some contracts with small local transport companies. Revenue increased by 30% in 2 months. Ryan, looking at the spreadsheets one night, shook his head in admiration. "You have a gift for this. I spent years racking my brain over these accounts, and you solve it in weeks." Marina smiled, stroking her belly. "I just needed a chance to show what I was capable of. In the mansion, I was just a porcelain doll my father displayed at dinners." "You're much more than that," Ryan said, his gaze lingering on her for a moment longer. "You're one of the strongest people I've ever met." Something changed between them that night. An invisible barrier dissolved. Marina realized that what she felt for Ryan went beyond gratitude. It was admiration for his integrity, respect for his hard work, tenderness for the way he raised Isabella alone, and something deeper, something that frightened and moved her at the same time. Ryan seemed to feel the same. Their conversations stretched longer and longer into the night. He talked about his humble childhood, about how he learned mechanics from his father, about the dreams he had to postpone when Joanna left him with a baby in his arms. Marina shared stories of the empty mansion, the silent dinners, the loneliness of growing up surrounded by luxury but without true love. Isabella became the bridge between them. The girl had become attached to Marina in a way that surprised even Ryan. She insisted on sleeping with Marina when she had nightmares, helped choose clothes for the baby, and had already decided she would be the most dedicated big sister in the world. "Auntie Marina," the girl asked one afternoon while they were drawing together, "when the baby is born, will he call me sister?" Marina looked at Ryan, who was washing dishes in the kitchen, but was obviously listening to the conversation. He paused, waiting for her answer. "If you want to be his sister," Marina said carefully, "I'm sure he'd love to have you." "I do," Isabella declared with the absolute certainty of children. "And I want you to be my mom too. Not for real, because my real mom is far away, but a mom of the heart. Can you?" Marina felt her eyes fill with tears. She hugged the girl, breathing in the scent of baby shampoo in her hair. "I'd love to be your mom of the heart, Isa." When she looked at the kitchen, Ryan was standing with his hands still in the sink water, his eyes shining. He wiped his hands and joined them in the living room, hugging both of them. That was the moment they became a family, even if they hadn't yet spoken the words. A week before her due date, Marina was organizing the last things in the baby's room when the doorbell rang. Mrs. Teresa, who was keeping her company, went to answer and returned with a worried expression. "Marina, there's a woman here, says she's your friend." Marina frowned and went to the door. On the other side was Julia Meadows, her best friend since the private school where they studied together. Julia wore a designer dress and immense sunglasses, clearly uncomfortable in that environment. "Hi, Marina," Julia said, taking off her glasses. "I needed to see you." Marina was shocked. "Julia, what are you doing here?" "Can I come in?" They sat in the small living room. Mrs. Teresa offered coffee, which Julia politely accepted, although Marina noticed how she held the simple cup as if it might break. "I saw the news," Julia began. "I saw what your father did. Marina, how are you living like this? You don't need this. I can help you, lend you money, get you a better apartment." Marina shook her head. "I don't want a better apartment, Julia. I'm happy here." Julia looked around, clearly skeptical. "Happy? Marina, you grew up in a mansion. Look at this place. It's tiny. How can you be happy?" "Because here I'm free," Marina replied. "Free to be myself, free to make my own decisions, free to love whoever I want. You'd understand if you had grown up in a gilded cage like me." "And this mechanic?" Julia asked, lowering her voice. "People are saying you're living with him. Marina, he's a working-class man. You can't be seriously considering a relationship with someone like that." Marina felt anger rise. "Someone like that? Ryan is an honest, hard-working man who raises his daughter alone and still found room in his heart to take me in when I had no one. He has more dignity in his little finger than all the businessmen and lawyers who frequented my father's mansion." Julia sighed. "You're blind, Marina. This man saw an opportunity. A rich, vulnerable heiress. He's taking advantage of you." "Get out of here," Marina said, standing up with difficulty. "If you came here to offer me money and insult the people who welcomed me, you're not welcome." Julia stood up too, grabbing her expensive purse. "I'm trying to help you because I care about you." "No," Marina replied. "You're trying to drag me back into your world because my choice questions everything you believe. But I'm not going back, Julia. I've learned that happiness can't be bought. It's built every day with people who truly love you." Julia looked at her friend for a long moment. "You've changed." "Yes," Marina agreed. "I've changed for the better." After Julia left, Marina sat on the sofa and cried, not from sadness but from relief. That encounter had cut the last thread that tied her to her past. She was no longer that insecure woman who sought approval in elite social circles. She was Marina, just Marina, and that was enough. Ryan arrived earlier than usual that day. Mrs. Teresa had called to tell him about Julia's visit. He found Marina lying on the sofa, Isabella beside her reading a children's book aloud. "Are you okay?" he asked, kneeling beside the sofa. "I am." Marina held his hand. "I'm more than okay. I'm where I belong." Ryan gently caressed her face. "Marina, I need to tell you something. I know it might not be the right time, with the baby coming and everything else complicated, but I can't keep it in anymore." Marina sat up, her heart racing. "What?" "I've fallen in love with you," he said simply. "I don't know when exactly it happened. Maybe when I first saw you at the garage, so fragile yet so strong, or when you hugged Isabella for the first time as if she were your own, or in any of the thousands of small moments we've lived together. But it happened, and I needed you to know." Marina felt tears stream freely. "I've fallen in love with you too, for your kindness, for your strength, for the way you see me as a person and not as a surname. You taught me what true love is." Ryan leaned in and kissed her, a soft kiss full of promise. Isabella, who was pretending to read but obviously watching everything, let out a little shriek of joy. "Are you going to get married?" she asked, jumping with excitement. Ryan and Marina laughed, separating slightly. "One step at a time, Isa," Ryan said, ruffling his daughter's hair. But Marina looked into his eyes and saw the future. She saw marriage, yes. She saw a family growing. She saw years of challenges, but faced together. She saw happiness of the kind that couldn't be bought or inherited, only built with love and dedication. That night, lying in her bed in the small room that now felt like home, Marina placed her hand on her belly and felt the baby kick hard. "Not long now, my son," she whispered. "Soon you'll meet the most incredible man in the world, and you'll grow up knowing that what matters isn't where you were born or how much money you have, but how much love you're capable of giving and receiving." Outside, a summer storm began. Lightning lit up the sky and thunder echoed. But inside that small apartment in Willow Creek, Marina felt safer than she had ever felt in the enormous halls of the Sterling mansion. Because there, finally, she had found her home. The February dawn was hot and muggy when Marina woke up feeling the first contraction. For a moment, still half asleep, she thought it was just another common discomfort of late pregnancy. But when the second came, stronger and with a defined pattern, she knew it was time. "Ryan," she called softly, touching his shoulder. He had started sleeping on the living room sofa in recent weeks, wanting to be close in case she needed anything during the night. He woke instantly, leaping from the sofa. "Is it time?" he asked, already grabbing his trainers. "I think so," Marina replied, taking a deep breath as another contraction came. "They're coming every 10 minutes. Ryan sprang into action with efficiency. He woke Mrs. Teresa, who, even at that hour of the morning, appeared promptly to stay with Isabella. He grabbed the bag Marina had packed weeks before, helped her slowly descend the stairs, supporting her at each step. In the truck, as he drove to St. Luke's City Hospital, Ryan held Marina's hand with one hand and the steering wheel with the other. "It's okay," he said, whenever a contraction made her moan. "You're strong. You can do this." Marina squeezed his hand, concentrating on breathing as she had learned in prenatal classes at the local clinic. She thought about how life had changed. 6 months ago, she was alone, terrified, not knowing how she would be able to bring a child into the world. Now she had Ryan by her side, a family waiting at home, a purpose. At the hospital, the on-call team received her with warm professionalism. Dr. Felicity, who had overseen her prenatal care, was coincidentally on duty and took over the case personally. "Marina, dear," she said with a smile, "your time has come. Let's bring this baby into the world." The following hours were a blur of pain, effort, and determination. Ryan didn't leave Marina's side for a second. He held her hand, wiped her sweat, whispered words of encouragement. When the pain became unbearable and Marina thought she couldn't go on, he looked into her eyes and said, "You've faced much worse. You are the strongest woman I know." And Marina believed him. She had faced family rejection, had chosen an uncertain path, had rebuilt her life from scratch. She could do this too. At 7:15 in the morning, as the first rays of sunlight entered the delivery room window, Marina gave one last push with all the strength she had left. And then, cutting through the warm February air, came the most beautiful cry she had ever heard. "It's a boy," Dr. Felicity announced, placing the baby still covered in vernix and crying vigorously on Marina's chest. A beautiful, healthy boy. Marina looked at her son in her arms and felt her heart explode with love. He was small, red, perfect. His eyes were closed and his fists clenched, protesting the light and cold of this new world. She hugged him against her chest, feeling the warmth of his skin against hers, and cried. Ryan, standing beside the bed, also cried unashamedly. He delicately touched the baby's tiny head, marveling. "He's perfect, Marina. You were incredible." Marina looked at Ryan and saw the same love she felt reflected in his face. In that moment, she knew that this man would be the father her son needed, even without blood ties. "What are you going to name him?" the nurse asked, preparing to fill out the documents. Marina and Ryan had discussed names for weeks. She wanted something that represented a new beginning, hope, something that didn't carry the weight of the Sterling surname. "Peter," Marina said, looking at the baby. "Peter Taylor." Ryan's eyes widened. "Taylor." Marina held his hand. "If you'll let him. You gave me a family when I had none. You gave me a home when I was lost. I want my son to carry the name of an honorable man, not an empty empire." Ryan kissed her forehead, too emotional to speak. He just nodded, and the nurse smiled as she wrote, "Peter Taylor." When Marina and Peter were discharged 2 days later, Willow Creek welcomed them like heroes. Mrs. Teresa had organized an impromptu reception in the building. There was a clothesline with crepe paper flags, a cornmeal cake made by the neighbors, and cold soda. The neighborhood children ran around excitedly, curious to see the new baby. Isabella, wearing her best dress, waited impatiently at the apartment door. When she saw Marina climbing the stairs with Peter in her arms, her eyes sparkled. "Can I see my little brother?" she asked in a respectful whisper. "Of course you can." Marina knelt with difficulty, allowing Isabella to look at the baby. "This is Peter, and he's very lucky to have you as a sister." Isabella delicately touched Peter's tiny hand. "Hi, Peter. It's me, your sister Isa. I'll take care of you forever." The following weeks were a whirlwind of nappies, feedings, and sleepless nights. Marina discovered that breastfeeding was harder than she imagined, but with the help of Mrs. Teresa and the neighbors who were already mothers, she learned. She also discovered that caring for a newborn was exhausting in a way she had never experienced. But she wasn't alone. Ryan woke up with her during the night, changing nappies and rocking Peter so she could rest for a few minutes. Isabella helped by fetching burp cloths and singing nursery rhymes to her brother. Mrs. Teresa appeared every day with ready-made food, ensuring Marina ate well. A month after Peter's birth, Marina was breastfeeding in the living room when Ryan arrived home from the garage earlier than usual. He seemed nervous, holding something behind his back. "Did something happen?" she asked, worried. Ryan knelt in front of her and the baby, pulling out a small, worn velvet box from behind his back. "Marina, when I met you, I just wanted to help someone in need, but you transformed my life in a way I never imagined possible. You brought light to our home, love to our family. Isabella has a mother, I have a partner, and we both have you." He opened the box, revealing a simple silver ring with a small blue stone. "It's not much. It's not gold or a diamond, but it's all I can offer right now. Marina Sterling, will you marry me? Will you make this family we've already built official?" Marina, with Peter still calmly feeding, extended her trembling hand. "Yes. 1,000 times, yes. And this ring is perfect because it comes from you, from your honest work, from your true love." Ryan placed the ring on her finger and kissed her, careful not to wake Peter. Isabella, who had been listening to everything hidden behind the door, ran out and jumped into her father's arms. "Are we going to be a real family?" she shouted with joy. "We already are, darling," Marina said, opening an arm to hug the girl too. "We have been for a long time." That night, after the children were asleep, Marina and Ryan sat on the small balcony of the apartment, looking at the city lights. Peter slept in his pram beside them, breathing peacefully. "Are you scared?" Marina asked. "Of marrying me, of taking Peter as your son? My past might come back to haunt us. My father might try something." Ryan held her hand, playing with the ring that now adorned her finger. "I'm not afraid of anything when I'm with you. And Peter is already my son in what matters. The day he was born, when I looked at him for the first time, my heart knew. He is mine." "I love you," Marina said, resting her head on his shoulder. "I love you in a way I didn't even know existed. You taught me that love isn't possession. It's not control, it's freedom. It's wanting the best for the other person even when it doesn't benefit you." "I love you too," Ryan replied, "and we're going to make this work. It might not be easy, but it will be worth it." They stayed there for hours planning the future. A simple wedding at the registry office, maybe a small party with the neighbors. Expanding the garage eventually, perhaps hiring another mechanic so Ryan could have more time with his family. Enrolling Isabella in dance classes, which she had always wanted to do. Ensuring Peter grew up knowing he was loved. These were simple, achievable dreams, completely different from the grandiose plans Marina had grown up hearing in the Sterling mansion. But they were true dreams, built on a solid foundation of love and mutual respect. The next morning, Marina woke up to Peter crying for a feed. As she breastfed him in the still dark room, she looked out the window and saw the sun rising over Willow Creek. She saw the first people leaving for work, the baker opening his shop on the corner, uniformed children going to school. She looked at the ring on her finger, at the baby in her arms, and thought of the impossible journey she had made. From rejected heiress to fulfilled mother, from prisoner of luxury to a free woman in simplicity, and for the first time in her life, Marina Sterling, who would soon be Marina Taylor, felt complete. 5 years had passed since that day when Marina, desperate and alone, had stopped at St. George's garage. 5 years that felt both like an eternity and the blink of an eye. It was a sunny Saturday morning when Marina woke to the sound of laughter coming from the kitchen. She stretched in the double bed she now shared with Ryan and smiled, recognizing the voices of Peter and Isabella, arguing over who would help their father make pancakes. Entering the kitchen, she found a scene she never tired of contemplating. Ryan, still in his pajamas, stood in front of the stove wearing an apron that read, "Best Dad in the World, a gift from Isabella on the last Father's Day." Peter, now 5, stood on a chair beside him, concentrating on flipping a pancake with a spatula too big for his small hands. Isabella, now 10 and increasingly like a young lady, was at the table setting it for breakfast with a cloth tablecloth and flowers she had picked herself from the garden. "Good morning, family," Marina said, kissing each of them on the head. "Mommy," Peter shouted enthusiastically, making his pancake fly from the frying pan and land back with a plop. "Did you see I did it myself?" "Yes, champion. It was perfect," Marina praised, exchanging a knowing look with Ryan, who had discreetly guided the boy's hand. The house had changed a lot in those 5 years. It was no longer the cramped two-bedroom apartment. 2 years ago, when the garage was consistently prospering under Marina and Ryan's joint management, they had managed to buy a small house in the same neighborhood. 3 bedrooms, a backyard where the children could play, and enough space for everyone to breathe. St. George's garage had also grown. It now had 5 employees, including Carl, who had become a minority partner. Marina had implemented an efficient management system, secured quality certifications, and established partnerships with larger companies. They weren't rich, not even close, but they lived comfortably, with all bills paid and still some left over for a few small luxuries. After breakfast, while Ryan took the children to their Saturday swimming lesson, Marina sat in the small home office they had set up. She still managed the garage's accounting, but she had also started offering consulting to other small businesses in the neighborhood. She discovered she had a talent for helping local entrepreneurs organize their finances and expand sustainably. The phone rang. It was an unknown number, but something about the digit sequence seemed familiar. Marina answered cautiously. "Hello? Marina?" The voice on the other end was feminine, mature, hesitant. "Is that really you?" Marina felt a shiver down her spine. She recognized that voice immediately, although she hadn't heard it in 5 years. "Mother?" "Yes, my daughter. It's me, Beatrice," Marina's mother said, her voice filled with emotion. "I know I have no right to call like this, after so long. But I needed to hear your voice." Marina sat down slowly, her heart racing. Throughout all those years, she had mentally prepared for a possible reunion with her father, but she had never considered that her mother would seek contact. "How did you get my number?" Beatrice sighed. "It wasn't easy. Your father forbade any mention of your name in the family, but I hired a detective discreetly. I found out where you live, what you do. Marina, I saw photos of you with your husband and your children. You look so happy." "I am happy," Marina replied, her voice firm but not hostile. "I'm happier than I ever was in the mansion. I know, and it was my mistake not to have had the courage to stand by you when you needed me most. I should have stood up to your father. I should have defended you, but I was a coward. I spent my whole life being a coward, letting Arthur control everything and everyone." Marina closed her eyes, remembering the mother she had known. Beatrice had always been an elegant but subdued woman, living in the shadow of her powerful husband, more a decorative piece in the mansion than a person with her own voice. "Why are you calling now, Mother?" "Because your father had a stroke 3 months ago," Beatrice revealed. "He survived, but he was left debilitated, and that made me realize that life is too short to live with regrets. I lost 5 years of your life, Marina. I missed the birth of my grandson, your wedding, everything. And I wanted to know if maybe one day you could forgive me." Marina felt tears burn. Part of her wanted to hang up, to protect the peace she had built. But another part, the part that had learned from Ryan about compassion and second chances, hesitated. "I don't know if I'm ready, Mother. You hurt me a lot. When I needed you most, I was abandoned." "I know." Beatrice was openly crying now. "And I'll carry that guilt for the rest of my life. But I've changed, Marina. Seeing your father so vulnerable, realizing that all that power and money meant nothing when it really mattered, opened my eyes. I divorced him. I left the mansion. I'm learning to be my own person for the first time at 60 years old." Marina was silent for a long moment. "You divorced Dad?" "Yes. And he disinherited me too, just like he did with you. But you know what? I feel free. For the first time in 40 years of marriage, I can breathe." Those words touched Marina deeply. She understood, perhaps more than anyone else, what it meant to choose freedom over wealth. "Mother, I need time to process all this, but maybe eventually we can talk calmly, meet my family, build something new." Beatrice sobbed with relief. "Thank you, my daughter. Thank you for even considering. I don't deserve it, but I'm grateful." After hanging up, Marina sat for a long time, looking out the window at the backyard, where a swing Ryan had built swayed gently in the wind. She thought about forgiveness, about second chances, about how life was too complex for simple answers. When Ryan and the children returned from swimming, she told him about the call. Ryan listened attentively, holding her hand. "What do you want to do?" he asked. "I don't know yet, but I think everyone deserves a chance to change, to grow. You gave me that chance when I had no one. Maybe I can give my mother that chance." "I'll support any decision you make," Ryan said, "but let's take it slow, protecting our family." "Always," Marina agreed. 3 months later, on a Sunday afternoon, Marina finally met Beatrice at a neighborhood cafe. Her mother had changed. Her hair, once impeccably dyed and styled, now showed natural grey strands. She wore simple but elegant clothes, without the ostentatious jewelry of before. But the biggest change was in her eyes. There was life in them, a light Marina had never seen before. The meeting was emotional but cautious. They talked for hours, Beatrice wanting to know everything about Marina's life. When Marina showed photos of Peter and Isabella on her phone, Beatrice cried, "They're beautiful, and you look so fulfilled, so content." "I am," Marina confirmed. "I learned that wealth is not measured in pounds, but in moments, in a morning hug, in a family dinner, in shared laughter." "Your father never understood that," Beatrice said sadly, "and he wasted his whole life chasing something he couldn't buy." "How is he?" Marina asked, surprising herself by caring. "Alone, isolated in the mansion's office, surrounded by employees but with no one who truly cares for him. He reaped what he sowed." Marina felt a pang of pity but not regret. Some people choose the path they walk and have to live with the consequences. The meetings with Beatrice became regular. Slowly, carefully, mother and daughter began to rebuild a relationship. Beatrice met Ryan and was charmed by his kindness. She met Peter and Isabella and melted at how happy and well-adjusted the children were. "You've done a wonderful job," she told Marina on one of those visits. "You've created a real family, not a facade like I did." "You can still build that too, Mother," Marina replied. "It's never too late to start over." On a special evening, the family gathered in the living room of their home. Marina looked around and took a mental count of everything she had. Ryan beside her on the sofa, his hand holding hers. Peter and Isabella on the rug, putting a jigsaw puzzle together, laughing when the pieces didn't fit. Her mother in the armchair, knitting a little cardigan for a neighbor's baby. She thought of the Sterling mansion, empty and silent, full of rooms no one used and expensive objects no one loved. She thought of her father, alone with his empire, surrounded by employees but without family. She thought of the woman she had been 5 years ago, lost and scared. And then she looked at the life she had built. They didn't have much in material terms. The house was simple, the clothes were from discount stores, holidays were camping trips in national parks. But they had something no money could buy: true love, shared purpose, and the freedom to be who they truly were. Ryan noticed her contemplative gaze and whispered, "What are you thinking about?" Marina smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "I'm thinking I'm the richest woman in the world." And she was, because she had learned the most important lesson life could teach: that true wealth is not in the mansions we inhabit, the cars we drive, or the bank accounts we possess. True wealth is in the hearts we touch, the lives we transform, and the love we share. Marina Taylor, formerly Marina Sterling, had lost a fortune in money, but had gained an infinitely more valuable treasure. She had found her family, her purpose, and finally herself. And as night fell over Willow Creek with the lights of neighboring houses coming on one by one, Marina closed her eyes and gave thanks. She gave thanks for that fateful day when her car broke down in front of a humble garage. She gave thanks that Ryan had chosen kindness over indifference. She gave thanks for every challenge she had faced, because each one had been a step on the ladder that led her there. Life had taught her that sometimes we need to lose everything to find what truly matters. And Marina wouldn't trade her simple but love-filled life for all the gold in the world, because she had discovered the secret that so many seek but few find. Happiness is not in what we possess, but in who we become and in whom we love along the way. End of story. If Marina and Ryan's journey touched your heart, know that every story we share here carries a message about what truly matters in life. Marina taught us that courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to keep going even when everything seems lost. She showed us that family is not defined by blood or surname, but by love, respect, and presence. How about sharing this story with someone who needs to be reminded that new beginnings are possible? Leave your comment telling us which moment moved you the most. Marina chose love over wealth. And you, what would you choose? Subscribe to the channel for more stories that celebrate the strength of the human heart, the beauty of new beginnings, and the transformative power of true love. Because all of us at some point need to be reminded that the value of a life is not measured in numbers, but in moments that make us feel alive. See you in the next story. And remember, you too can rewrite your own narrative.